Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Now, we live in an age where people really look up to the newest pop star, football player. You know, we have these things called pop idol, even in the Arab lands, they have Arab idol, wallah musta'an, where, you know, for a lack of a better term, people have called it celebrity worship. And as we know from Islamic point of view, this is something not good. But we do in Islam need role models. And obviously, the greatest role model in Islam is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But unfortunately, in this day and age, the youth, the Muslim youth in this day don't have anyone to look up to, and they don't look at the correct personalities when they're looking at someone who they want to admire and respect. So unfortunately, we live in a time where the football players and the singers and the dancers are the people that our Muslim youth are looking at. And there are many reasons for this. One of them is the wrong Islamic upbringing, little importance shown to religion, a simple fact that when they look at the West and the so-called developed countries, they see advancement, they see justice, they see, things being clean and organized. And when you go to the land of the Muslims, subhanallah, you find, backwardness to a certain degree. You find things being unorganized, not being clean, and you find manners are terrible, and you find technology is behind, and you find poverty. So obviously, you're going to look at the others and admire them more. And this is not Islam's fault. This is Muslims' fault. But one of the ways that we can kind of change this situation, or one of the steps we can take to change, because I think the main cure is to return to our religion. But if we can explain to the youth and to the Muslims generally that there was a time where we were respected and things were good, and this is the golden age of Islam. Now we're going to focus on, when we speak today, we're going to focus on a point that in this golden age of Islam, which is called, where Islam was at its height, where they were the most advanced with regards to technology, justice, system, all of the things that when we look at the West, we big them up and we say, yeah, look, America and England, they're much better than Egypt and Morocco because they're cleaner, the streets are better, they have better cars, they have better technology. Well, this is how the Europeans used to look at Baghdad and Qurtuba and the lands of the Muslims. They used to say the same thing and send the royalty of England would send their children and the princes to the Muslims in Andalus to study, and scientists would come from Europe to study in the Muslim lands. Now you find that in those days, the scholars of Islam were the superstars, for lack of a better term. They were respected. Now, let me just show you how much that the Khalifa of the time, from these days, in the first generations of Islam, for the first 700-800 years or more, this period, that the Khalifa would choose a scholar to raise his children. He would have a scholar, and they would call it a mu'addib. He's his mu'addib. He's the one who raises this child. Now, subhanallah, they would make sure that their child knew something about fiqh, about usul al-fiqh, about medicine, about hadith, about aqidah, about language, about balagha, which is the fine nuances of the language, nahu, Arabic grammar, tafsir, Quran, the qira'ah, not just knowing one qira'ah. They would teach them more than one qira'ah, so that this child who possibly would be the future ruler, knew something about his dunya and his akhirah. SubhanAllah. They show great importance in this. So you'll find that the Khalif, and many times they were not the best of Muslims. They committed a lot of oppression, but they still knew that at the end of the day, we respect these people to the point I want to put my son in the hands of the Imam, the Alim, the scholar. He's the person I'm choosing to help raise my child. Now, give you so many other examples. The fact that you would have in the sittings of hadith of Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people in one sitting just to hear the hadith. That when Bukhari would enter a city, people would call, Bukhari has entered, Bukhari has entered, and it would spread like a Chinese whisper to all corners of the city, and people would come and greet him. And it'll have like a party, I'm not talking a dancing party with singing and dancing music, but I'm saying like there will be like a whole atmosphere of happiness, farah. There'll be happiness in the whole area because Bukhari entered Naysapur. SubhanAllah. You will find that so many people in the sittings, there were no microphones. Remember this, no microphones. So many people in the sittings that you would have every so many lines, someone stand up and repeat what was said until it reaches the back. Now we have microphones in the masajid and we don't even need to turn them on because you can hear the voice of the person speaking because there's only one or two lines. Wallah musta'an. But if it was the Champions League final or Barcelona versus Real Madrid, you find that the Muslims will go there in hordes. And if you actually, and this is, I'm not exaggerating, if you picture the crowd of a football stadium, some of the lessons of hadith reach to those likings. It's very hard to picture with no technology, no microphones, that they would reach similar numbers to a football match. Now, also we see from them that they weren't actually rich. Now, subhanAllah, this is something else. The fame did not go hand in hand with wealth. These are people who shunned fame and wealth, but it was thrown at them and given to them. While we run after the fame and wealth, and as Muslims in general, don't have any. So you'll find people like Sufyan al-Thawri walking thousands, this is not an exaggeration, thousands of miles. Imagine walking between Iraq and Saudi Arabia by foot. Going from, Iraq to Syria by foot and camel and horse or donkey. We would, if you drove in the most luxurious of cars from Syria to Mecca or Medina, you'll find that you're going to be tired and you'll be uncomfortable. These people walked to the point they would eat a dead tortoise, crack open its shell. Narrated on Sufyan al-Thawri that they had nothing to eat. They found a dead turtle on the beach. They had to crack it open and eat what was inside the shell of the turtle just to survive, because they were going to get a hadith or two or however many they were going to collect. But you'll find that Sufyan al-Thawri's name will be mentioned long after some of your famous singers and footballers' memories have died out of all this technology. There's singers that, have faded away from the last 5 years, and you don't know you forgot who they are unless someone mentions to them. Sufyan al-Thawri and Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Ahmed and these people's names have lasted over 1,000 years and will last, inshallah ta'ala, until Yawm al-Qiyamah. From what? With no means of spreading their name. But that their ikhlas and their sincerity, Allah Jalla wa Ala made them famous amongst The people. So these are the true superstars. These are the true people that we should be connecting the youth's hearts to. People who would walk to Hajj from Baghdad to Mecca. Walk twice in his life. Imam Ahmad rahmahullah ta'ala. He made Hajj twice by foot. People who would travel hundreds and thousands of miles just to hear one hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the people loved them. When they died, you would find, for example, 100,000, 500,000 people praying the funeral. So Imam Ahmed, that the whole city prayed the funeral. Imagine the whole city prayed the funeral. There's no Twitter, there's no Facebook, there's no WhatsApp, there's no mobile phones, there's no house lines. How did the whole city get to know? SubhanAllah. They had no means to spread, but it spread. People in Spain knew who Imam Ahmed was. And people in Baghdad knew the people or the ulama of Spain, or what was called Andalus at that time. So subhanAllah, you find that they had this fame and people looked up to them. And when it was like this, the ummah was in a much better condition, because the role models that people had were healthy, good role models. You know, I want to be like Imam Ahmed. There's a story of a baker, a humble baker, in the time of Imam Ahmed rahmahullah ta'ala. And Imam Ahmed was resting in the masjid, and one of the guards, the people who used to patrol to protect the area, removed him and said, we've got to shut up, you've got to get out. We've got to shut this place up, you've got to get out. So he took Imam Ahmed out and moved him. So Imam Ahmed, you know, it's very late, there's nowhere to go. It's before Fajr. And he sees a baker baking the bread early. You know, he starts up early to get the bread ready for the early morning. So he sits, says, do you mind if I sit and just, you know, there's nowhere really for me to go now. Do you mind if I sit here? So the man says, okay, no problem. So while he's pulling the bread in and out of the oven, he's constantly making tasbih. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. So Imam Ahmad rahmallah, he noticed, he said, subhanallah, I see you make tasbih a lot, mashallah. Have you felt any effects of this? And the man said, yeah, of course. He said, every dua I make is answered, except for one. Constantly I make dua, everything Allah gives me. But there's one that He hasn't given me yet. So he said, what was that, if you don't mind? He said, yeah, I asked Allah Jalla wa Ala that I meet Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. So Ahmad ibn Hanbal laughed. And he says, Allah has brought you here, you know, in a phrase that literally means, you know, by the scruff of his, you know, in English we say by the scruff of his neck. Allah's brought him here for you. So subhanAllah, we have many benefits from that little story, you know, the tasbih and making dhikr and the benefits of making dhikr. But with regards to what we're speaking now, in the context of what we're speaking now, we see that his dream was to see Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and he was a baker. He wasn't a student of knowledge. He wasn't an alim. He was the average Joe. You know, now we say, yeah, it's my dream to meet 50 Cent. It's my dream to meet Eminem. It's my dream to meet Messi or Ronaldo. But their dream was, I wish I could meet Ahmad ibn Hanbal. The average Joe, the baker, blue collar work. This wasn't someone, you know, someone special. I want to meet Ahmad ibn Hanbal. I want to meet Imam al-Bukhari. These are the people who, the true stars of mankind. Not, you know, people who make their money from cursing and swearing and committing filthy acts or kicking a football across a field for 90 minutes. And then we raise them and we jump up and support them. And these people in the first place are not even Muslim and have no concern for Islam whatsoever. And we, like fools, jump up and spend money to buy shirts with their names on the back, or buy their CDs, or buy the clothes like they have. SubhanAllah. And the scholars are sitting with 2 or 3 lines, 3 people, 5 people. I've entered sittings with the ulama. Wallahi, sometimes there's only 5 or 6 people sitting in the lesson. Imagine the times Imam Ahmed and other than them, hundreds or thousands, cities would get happy because an Imam like Bukhari is entering the city. Now scholars enter the city, no one even knows who he is. So we find that there's a relation between the state of the Ummah and how the Ummah act. So I'm not saying this is the only answer to fixing the whole problem of the Ummah, but I'm saying look at the connection. When the people took the best of people as their role models, you found that the people were generally better people. Now, we may think that the scholars of the past had it easier. They lived in the golden age. Things were easier for them. But in reality, no. They struggled to get where they were. But that's why Allah Jalla wa Ala made that the golden age. So we've all heard about the rihla, the traveling for this knowledge, this Islamic knowledge. And we maybe don't really appreciate this actual act of traveling to seek knowledge. Now, when we think of traveling, we think about, okay, I'm going to go to Morocco or Egypt or Saudi Arabia or Yemen to study Islam. Okay, I'm going to go gather my stuff, get a ticket from the internet, cheap flights or whatever, find the cheapest flight I can, go, jump on. Yeah, I'm flying over. I'm going to be like, the Zuhud. I'm going to go economy class. We're gonna when I get there, I'm gonna rent a cheap apartment with some brothers, and we're gonna rough it out. And maybe to a certain degree, it's quite difficult, no doubt. But when you go back and you see that you have people, some of them young, some of them old, in their 50s or more, traveling for 6-7 months across deserts. Traveling, just with geographically, you have to look how we're looking at it. Someone traveling from Spain, okay, which was Andalus, all the way to Medina to study hadith. Not for money, not for fame, just to hear someone say, Haddathani Shaykhi, Haddathani this tabi'i, or Haddathani this scholar, Haddathani, then he mentions the Sahaba, Ibn Umar, for example, or Umar ibn Khattab, Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He sits, he takes down some notes, he asks the alim about some issues in fiqh, some issues in hadith, some issues in aqidah, takes some notes and goes home happy. He spent and didn't get any physical reward. This is now, maybe this didn't highlight how difficult this is. Maybe just showing you their intention. But now, picture a time with no electric, no transportation except animal, or maybe boat across the water. So you're walking either by foot or by animal through Spain, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, by animal, crossing over the Sinai to get to Mecca and Medina. This is huge. If you just drive from Mecca and Medina in a car, it takes 6 hours? So imagine what they went through. And then this is with no money, nearly dying of thirst. People died. Many of the scholars of hadith we know died traveling. More than one. Bukhari and Daraqutni, they died on a travel, on an expedition for hadith. Many people died just traveling for the hadith, got lost. And subhanAllah, they didn't mind. They weren't even worried about this. It was, okay, this is a normal part of what I have to do. This is real struggling for the sake of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And no matter how long we sit here and discuss and speak, we can never truly highlight how great these people were. And their intention was that people like us don't have to travel. So imagine Bukhari, Imam al-Bukhari, for over 16 years traveled. He went to Egypt. Syria, Mecca and Medina, Yemen, different parts of Iraq. Some places he travelled so many times, he doesn't know how many times he travelled. Parts of Asia, Naysapur, Bukhara. These are places of northern Iran and parts of Asia. Now, can you imagine in the environment he lived in and the time he lived in with none of the luxuries that we have? He did all of this. Now, all we have to do is Google Sahih al-Bukhari PDF. Go to a bookshop and buy Sahih al-Bukhari. That's it. He done all of that so we can just pick up the book. We all owe Bukhari a lot of gratitude, and we should be making dua for people like Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim and Imam Ahmed and Daraqutni and al-Bayhaqi and other than. We should be making dua constantly for all of them, because we can learn our religion with extreme ease. And anyone who, when we compare it to today, it's difficult, but when we look at what they went through, wallahi, we can learn our religion in extreme ease and comfort. Where they would face starvation, face dying of thirst, face bandits and people trying to rob them while they're traveling through, different paths, deserts, no roads, there's no concrete, there's no pavements, there's no lights, no street lights. And then while doing this, they fought jihad, they fought in the Muslim armies to defend the Muslim lands from invaders. So I think, we need to really focus and teach our youth, and even some of the older ones of us, really need to revise the biographies of the scholars. We should own sets of biographies of the scholars of the past. The scholars of the past would purposely write voluminous works of biographies of the scholars of Islam and teach them to their students. Read the biography of Bukhari. Read the biography of Daraqutni. Read the biography of Imam Ahmed and Imam Malik and Shafi and Abu Hanifa. We should read these biographies. Of course, number one biography should be the biography of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the biography of his companions. But we shouldn't stop there. We should know we have a rich history of real superstars that we should be following. We should be pushing our children to emulate. These are the people who cared enough about us in the future to go and travel the world, literally, the world, a huge part of it, to gather up the hadith, to learn Islam, to put it and compile it into books so that we today can sit down with relative ease. SubhanAllah. So again, advice to me, and for me, how I should look after my family, and advice to all the Muslims out there, how they should look after their family, is they must have some type of biography in their house. They should have the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They can go online, you can find many summarized biographies of the scholars of Islam. It's not difficult. We should have this in our houses. We should have stories of positive role models for our children. We should from a young age explain to them, wow, look what this guy did. He walked from Baghdad to Mecca just to learn something about Islam. No, we can't walk from our house to the masjid without getting stressed. These people put efforts, put their lives at risk, left their families for years at a time, 7-8 months at a time, just so they could learn and spread Islam, so that Islam can continue. That is why that's why it was the golden era, because they put all this effort solely, strictly for spreading and continuing Islam. And we spend all this effort and all this time doing nothing. So that, again, this advice is for me first and my family, and then for all of the Muslims. Put some importance to this. Teach the children, teach the youth the importance of knowing who these true superstars, these people that really should be followed, instead of the people that we're following now.